Happy New Year's Eve. Surprise. There's an extra video for you. I wanted to get this out on the last day of 2023 because I thought it'd be fun. I decided to do a coordination. So I'm coordinating my top 20, my top reads of 2023, my video with the graphics that I'm putting out on on Instagram. I thought I'd coordinate. Anyway, let's get into the books because that's what we're all here for, aren't we? I'm not doing 23 books. I'm only doing my top 15. They're fairly in order of my favorites. So these are my top reads, my top 15 reads of 2023. And here we go. Number 15 is The Graham Effect by Elle Kennedy. And I loved this book. I gave it 5 stars. There is this one scene that made it 5-star for me. I loved, well, before I talk about that scene, I loved the character growth. I loved being back in a very rich world. I loved the Off-Campus series. I loved the Briar U series. So the world was already built. But I felt like this added to the world, okay? I felt like it's not, yeah, it was a little bit nostalgic. However, I felt like it didn't take away from the world like some Next Gen series does. I felt like it added to it. That's not as easily accomplished as one might think. I felt like Elle Kennedy did that with The Graham Effect. This one is Gigi and Ryder. They are definitely, they basically make a deal because Ryder needs Gigi's dad's approval to become an assistant coach. Gigi needs help working on a specific skill to be able to get onto the U.S. Olympic women's hockey team because she's also a hockey player. It's their love story. Ryder has a very tragic backstory, which is really sad. I love seeing Garrett's reaction to her finding Ryder because you know Ryder's the one for her. And I love how Hannah takes it as well. But there's one scene that really, and it's not so nostalgic. I guess it is a little nostalgic, but it was knowing the characters' backstories, all the characters' backstories, that just made me cackle. Was the scene where it was Dean De Laurentiis giving Gigi a whole like a Costco size brand or BJ size brand, a big thing of condoms, and he's saying that Tucker was the man whore. When we all know who was a real man whore in that whole entire friend group. That made me laugh a lot. I was actually in Target buying a nightlight when that specific scene was played out when I was listening to the audio. And that audio is actually on Hoopla if you want to go listen to it. Anyway, it was perfect and it made my top 15. It's coming in at number 15 and I highly recommend it if you haven't gotten to it in 2023. Coming in at number 14, this one was one of the 2 books that were on my favorites list in December. And this is King of Greed by Anna Wong. This one was a marriage in crisis or marriage in trouble. And I'm not going to say too much about the plot, but I will say this. Dominic Davenport very much is married to his job. And his wife is his mistress. He's been married to his wife for 10 years. He misses his 10-year anniversary, and his wife, Alessandra, had enough, and she leaves him, and he has to do some groveling. And I know there's been some criticism that how much groveling is enough for what he did. Well, his relationship with Alessandra, they're still in love with each other. He came from a very poor background. He's dyslexic, so there's that representation. He's just very, very good with numbers. I feel like he did enough groveling to warrant her forgiveness. I mean, he stepped back and let her date other men. And that basically killed him emotionally. He wanted to get violent every time he saw Alessandra with other men. I mean, he went to Brazil to win her back when she went to Brazil on a very extended holiday. So, I mean, he did everything he could to win her back. And she had to find a way to forgive him. And she did. Dominic and Alessandra are written in a specific way, so I feel like the grovel are written towards the way their characters are written. I feel like they are perfectly, they're just well, it's just written really well. I feel like the pacing is perfect. I feel like this has such small romantic moments that are just gorgeous. It's not overly spicy. It has not just enough spice in it. I feel like this is a beautiful second chance romance, and it's a beautiful marriage in trouble, and I highly recommend this book. I really am enjoying the King of Sin series by Anna Wong. I've liked every single book in this series so far. So yeah, this is number 14. Number 13, and the reason why it's number 13, oh my gosh, is because I think for this one, and it's Grim and Barrett by Juliet Cross, is because it wrapped up an entire series that I have loved pretty much every single book in this series, including the novella Walking in a Witchy Wonderland. This is a cozy paranormal romance series about witches, werewolves, and Grimms. And Henry is a Grimm. Henry Blackwater is a Grimm, and Clara Savoy is a witch. And Clara is very sunshiny, sparkly, and Henry is very grumpy. He's very moody, and there's a reason for it. But she is, how should I put it? She's tired of waiting for him to make a move, so she decides to make a move herself. And it is so very sweet. And it's not as like spicy. Like she's sweetness incarnate. But she has a little naughty side to her as well. They get together very quickly. But the thing is what sold me on this book is that they were willing to sacrifice themselves for each other. And it wrapped up the entire series as a whole perfectly. There was no overarching plot that was unanswered. Everything was just written beautifully. The romance was not affected by any overarching plots that had to be answered. Everything was just well balanced. I loved Henry and Clara. I wanted their book way earlier in the series, and I was not disappointed in their book, and especially in their love story. And I loved how they supported and loved each other, and I loved he knew she was coming after him because she was done waiting, and he prepared for her because he knew. The lowest rating on this whole series I gave was like 4.5 stars. This was a really good series. So I absolutely love that series. Coming in at number 12 is The Right Move by Liz Tomfort. I understand the appeal of Ryan Shea and Indy. Indy needed a place to stay after she caught her boyfriend cheating on her. I understand why Ryan did not want to have anybody in his own personal space after what happened in his backstory. But he was very perfect. He was a very, very perfect boyfriend. He knew what kind of coffee she liked and made sure she had it. He made sure he put together her bookshelves. He did everything for her. And he was the perfect boyfriend. I really enjoyed, they started fake dating because he needed to show his general manager that he was a well-rounded human instead of just a basketball player. There's a lot of beautiful little romantic moments in this book. It was just really one of the best books I've read all year. And I mean, there's not much I can add to this book that everyone hasn't been saying. It had to go on this list. So it's on this list. Coming in at number 11 is Gunner by Dr. Rebecca Sharp. Now, if there was a book that was ever written specifically for my little trope art, this would be it. This book is the third book in the Reynolds Protective Group series. I mean, I pretty much loved almost every book in this series. There's 4 books, and this series is following 4 brothers. Gunner is a playboy. He meets Stella on a holiday. I think it's like spring break or something. Anyway, they end up having a one-night stand. She doesn't know his name. He knows that her name's Della. Della's father is very rich. Her father owns hotels. Her father bought a hotel in his family's small town in Wyoming. I think it was sort of out of spite or something, if I remember correctly. Anyways, so she finds out she's pregnant, right? And then so she goes to the small town to restore this hotel, to prove herself to her father, right? And she walks off the plane, and he recognizes her as Della. He recognizes her and realizes that she's pregnant with his baby. He's like, and he's tasked to protect her. So now he has to protect her and his unborn child, right? But someone's trying to kill her. Okay, so this is like my trope cake, right? This is small town secret or surprise baby, protective hero, romantic suspense. This book was like literally written for me, and it was done beautifully. The romance was believable. The hero was not a jerk. Conflict was great. The romance was beautiful. I had such a good time with this book. I had to move it up, okay? This book was such a surprise to me. My best books were books that surprised me, that made me think, made me laugh, made me feel. They were just ones that they just grabbed me. They were the ones that surprised me. They're the ones that just made me go, hoo, hoo. You know what I mean? I just had fun with them. So these were the ones that really stuck with me. And they're the ones that I think about. Or they're the ones that I feel like were written for me. Like this one. This one was definitely written for me. And I do think about this one. This one is really, really good. And the only reason why I found this series, and the reason why I found Gunner, was because I was watching a YouTube video. It was Larry Reed's. Someone told her to read Ranger, which is about, it was sort of a take on Dr. Spencer Reed from Criminal Minds, and I love Criminal Minds. So I was like, oh, I want to read that. But I like to read series in order. So it's Archer, Hunter, Gunner, and Ranger. But Gunner was just by far my favorite because of the whole trope cake. It was perfect for me. I loved it. So 5 stars, and is on and it's number 11. So coming in at number 10 is Reckless by Elsie Silver. This is book 4 in Chestnut Springs. We all know that. I had to give it a spot on this list out of all of them, because I thought I had read Flawless. I didn't. I actually read that at the end of 2022, I think it was. But I read Heartless, Powerless, Reckless, and then Hopeless. I had to give it to Reckless because, again, Secret Baby. I love Secret Baby. I can't help it. It makes it messy. When it's done well, it's done really well, and it gives it good eggs, okay? But I love Theo as a character, and I love Winter. She is the perfect ice queen. Theo doesn't try to change Winter, and Winter doesn't try to change Theo. She allows Theo to be grumpy when he needs to be grumpy. He doesn't always have to be the class clown with Winter. I love that Winter is patient with Theo, and Theo is patient with Winter. Like, he gives her room to breathe. And the thing is Winter as a character made so much character growth, and that is very important to me as a reader, is that I love to see character growth in books. I love to see how a character like Winter goes from being like a stony, frozen bitch from Flawless all the way to finding her HEA and Reckless. And she did, and she deserved it. And what she went through with her ex-husband, and how she was able to find a relationship with her sister and with her sister's friends, and then finding her HEA with Theo, I loved it. And so out of every single book in this series, I had to give it to Reckless because of all of that. I mean, yes, I love Cade, and I love Willa, and I love their banter, and I love their found family, but I feel like this one needed to be more recognized because of the character growth and because of the way Willa and Theo were together. I just feel like this one needed it more so, because everybody else is going to say Heartless, but I need to say Reckless. It's just, to me, it was better by a smidge. Okay, coming in at number 10, and this goes back to when I say when something hits me over the head and I just have a damn good time. And It's Too Good to Be True by Christian Ashley. This one, I felt like I was in a historical romance, in a contemporary romance, and in a romantic suspense, all wrapped up in one. Daphne Ryan is our heroine, and she's an American heiress. She has a stepmother her age, and she has like the most beautiful relationship with her. It's more like a sister relationship, but her sister, who is, how should I put this delicately, is a raging bitch. She invites her to meet her fiance, and then leaves her at this big giant manor house in the English countryside with an earl and his wife, who's very, very frigid, and Ian, who is next in line to become the the earl, and he's about to become the earl because of the whole clause thing. But anyway, that's a whole another to do. She feels like she's being haunted by a ghost from the 1920s, and so she has to solve this murder that happened from a mistress of another duke from the Duke. I wish they were dukes, but it was an earl from the 1920s, because dukes are over earls, if you know the peerage. Anywho, or how, yeah. So someone did something naughty and killed this woman. All right, and so she feels like she needs to find out who killed this woman. So you have the romantic suspense element, you have the paranormal romance, and then you have the contemporary romance, because her and Ian are really hot for each other. It's just like they have to figure all this stuff out. And I love a good romantic suspense. Like, I'm a romantic suspense girly, and I love a good thriller. And so I like to find out who did it and who done it. I would go to romantic plot, which this had, and I love paranormal romance. So I feel like, and I love historical romance. If you've been around here for a while, you know I like a good romantic historical romance. It was one of the most unique books I've read this year, and I needed to recognize that. And I have yet to find anything, and I've been thinking about this book, and I have tried to find books like this, and I have yet to find any book and that's anywhere near like this. Like, I can't find any book like this. So if you find any book like this, please let me know down below, because I would love to know. Anyhow, so yeah, that's my number 9 book. I have to give it to Inheritance, despite that cliffhanger. And we know how much I hate cliffhangers. Listen, I really, really hate cliffhangers. Oh my gosh. Okay, like cliffhangers and me, we are no. But this one, Listen, this one is a paranormal romance, and it's about a haunted house. And yes, it is Nora Roberts. I know not everybody is a Nora Roberts fan, but I don't care. I like Nora Roberts. We are not going to talk negative about Nora Roberts around here because that is not going to happen. There's a reason why Nora Roberts is one of the founding authors of romance. She is. She has been writing long before I was born, okay? And I will not take any criticism of Nora Roberts around here. It just will not happen. That being said, let's get on with Inheritance. This is, okay, this has a 4.5 rating, okay? This one is a good one. So, Inheritance is, it's about a haunted house, okay? And a curse, a family curse. This one, Astrid Poole was one of the first, in 1806, she was one of the first brides to be killed. The brides in the Poole family always die on their wedding day or soon after, okay? So Sonia, her dad was adopted. He did not know he had a identical twin until a lawyer came after her dad died. He came to her house and to tell her that she inherited this estate. Her life's a bit in shambles because she found her cheating fiance in bed with her cousin. Such a cliche, I know, right? And so she calls off her wedding, has to leave her job because she works with her fiance, and he is a douche canoe who does some pretty shady crap. Anyway, she is, I think, like a graphic artist or something like that, if I remember correctly. But she has to go live in this house for 3 months. So she goes with her friend Cleo. Cleo's family is from New Orleans, from Louisiana, and I think Cleo's mother or grandmother is a witch. So Cleo is not afraid of these ghosts. This is so well thought out and well plotted and well written that the ghosts have their own distinctive personalities. There is one ghost, her name's Clover, that has a playlist. I mean, songs from like the Ramones to Taylor Swift, okay? I will link that Spotify playlist down below. It is so freaking fantastic. So she's like playing all these songs throughout the entire book as they go along. And Sonia meets Trey, who is the lawyer's son, who's also a lawyer. And is there romance? Is it closed door? Yeah, because Nora Roberts does more closed door now than she used to. Her earlier stuff's a lot more spicy than it is now. She does more romantic suspense now, but this is definitely paranormal. Lover. She played Lover by Taylor Swift. I thought that was very fun. Anyway, I loved every minute of this book, and then it ended on that dang cliffhanger. I have to wait till next year, until November next year to read the book. To what happens next. But it is so good. It is so good. I loved this book very much. It was my favorite. And I read her other one, Identity, and I do not repeat authors on my top because I'd like to be fair and give each author a shot. So even though I've read all of Elsie's books, I've read more than one Nora Roberts book, I've read more than one Catherine Cowell's books, I've read more than one Laura Nasher book, different books that I've read by different authors. I've binge series. I do not put multiple books by the same author. I can't do that because I want to give each author recognition, if that makes any sense. So that's why I don't do that. I have to give it to one, okay? So in this particular case, it's going to go to Inheritance, and it's my number 8 book. This one, number 7, is a historical romance, Heartless Duke by Scarlett Scott. Okay, listen, this is the truest of true enemies to lovers. She is part of the Irish resistance, and he is a English Duke. Okay? If you know anything about English history or Irish history, you know it's like gunpowder and a lit match. It's boom. It is just like, it's explosive. They hate each other, but yet they want to have sexy times together. It is so much fun. He calls her Banshee. She calls him other choice words. In the term Banshee starts as an insult and ends up as a term of endearment. And it is so well written. They really do not like each other until they fall in love with each other. She has to make a choice whether to stay with Irish's resistance or become a duchess. I mean, that's turning your back on your people and on your core belief system. That's not a small thing. And it was well written. The chemistry was so good in this book. The writing, the plotting, the character growth, there was so many little moments in this book, the little more romantic moments in this book. But this was just, they lusted after each other, but yeah, they hated each other, and they hated the fact that they lusted after each other. I've never read a enemies to lovers book that was so well written like this, because most enemies to lovers, they're not really enemies to lovers. So Bridget, she did something really naughty in book 1, because this is book 2. If you want to skip book 1 and you will just want to read this one, you can find me on Instagram and DM me, and I will tell you what you need to know from book 1. It was, again, one of the best enemies to lovers books I've ever read, and Scarlett Scott is one of the best new authors I've read in 2023, and this is my number 7 pick. So my number 6 book, it's a whole series, and do not need to really go through the series because we all know what it is. It's the Mine of series by S.T. Abbey. If you know, you know. Logan and Lana, she's a serial killer, and she has a really traumatic past. Logan is a FBI profiler, and he's hunting her with his team, and they're also having a good sexy time together, dating and falling in love with each other, even though it's fun. I read this on the beach on the 4th of July week, and when I was trying to read like fluffy rom-coms, I ended up picking up the Mine F series. It was great. I loved every minute of this book. Anyway, this was just such a good book. It was so dark. So check trigger warnings. Always check trigger warnings. It was perfect. It was a perfect romantic suspense romantic thriller. And it was just well paced, well written, 5 stars, and it was my number 6 book. Number 5, Real by Kennedy Ryan. The story was Nivea and Cannon's story. Cannon was a filmmaker, Nivea is a actress, and they're telling Desi Blue's story. Desi Blue is a fictional character, but I feel like she is, Desi Blue is kind of like, she reminds me of Josephine Baker. If you don't know anything about Josephine Baker was a real story. Hi, Walter. My cats are on my bed. So if you hear purring, that's why. Josephine Baker was she was a comedian. She was a jazz singer, and she also, when she moved to Paris from New York, she ended up being a spy during World War II. She was a badass, and she was fantastic. You should absolutely look her up. And I think Kennedy Ryan might have used her for Desi Blue. Real has lupus representation that was done beautifully. This one was, I feel like, has such a beautiful romantic story as well. I feel like this one anybody could read. and they would love it. And I agree, I love this book. Book was great. My only thing is when I was listening to the audiobook, and this is me, I have ADHD, so I don't listen to graphic audios because it's like sparkly squirrels to me, okay? And when I say sparkly squirrels, it's like with the graphic audios, and specifically with Reel, after every certain part, they started having Desi Blue sing. And it took me out of the story. With graphic audios, all the background noises, it was like, what was that? What's that? What's that? What's that? And I can't do it. I literally can't do it. Isn't that right, Walter? Yes. Hi, Walter. See? I'm getting distracted by my cat. Anyhow, yeah, so every time Desi Blue came on, it would throw me out of the story, and I would literally have to pull myself back into the story, and it would just took me longer to get back into the story. And then by the time I get back into the story, Desi Blue would get back into the story to start singing again, and then it would just throw me back out of the story, and then it would just be over and over and over again. So yeah, that was the thing. Did I love the story? Absolutely. Would I read it again? Absolutely. But I would read it in book form for me personally because of my ADHD. I could not do it in audio again. Now we are getting onto my top 4. Number 4 is Echoes of You by Catherine Cowles. So I loved Shadows of You. I was going back and forth on this. And like I said, I can only pick one from her. Well, I feel like Shadows of You was technically more perfect than Echoes of You. I feel like Echoes of You had more romantic heart than Shadows of You, if that makes any sense whatsoever. I feel like Nash and Maddie. So I feel like Nash and Maddie had more romantic connection. Maddie was running from her abusive ex, and so she came back to town. And Nash is a natural protector. So you know me and protective heroes. I love a good protective hero. And and besides that, you know how I keep saying that friends to lovers don't always work for me. Most of the time, they don't always work for me. Like, if you remember, I just read Broken Dreams. I gave it a 4-star most of the time. Almost every single time, I truly never give friends to lovers more than 4 stars. This is one of the very rare times I gave it a 5 stars. This one I gave it 5 stars. I loved this book. I loved their friends to lovers. Very rare do I give a friends to lover 5 stars because I feel like they're just waiting around to shoot the shot, basically. I love Maddie as a character. She's a very strong character. And I feel like Nash knows how strong she is. He is very protective over her, but yet he will walk through fire to keep her safe. However, he also knows that she can hold her own. I feel like both characters complement each other. I feel like both have very good character growth in this. I feel like the suspense plot doesn't overwhelm the romantic relationship. I feel like this book was well balanced between the romantic relationship, the suspense plot, and the secondary characters. I just loved it, and I loved Maddie and Nash together, and that's why I had to give it the number 4 spot. Number 3 is Butcher and Blackbird by Brenda Weaver, who surprised, not me. Well, I was sort of surprised. I thought it'd be higher, but I had to give there's 2 that I just had to give it higher. This one, I listened to the audio, and Joe Arden and Lucy Rivers, you knew they had a damn good time when they were narrating this book because you could tell they were laughing. This is about the Orb Weaver and her fanboy, Rowan. So Sloane and Rowan. This is about 2 serial killers who hunt serial killers, but they also form a friendship, a bond. And yes, both needed to go to therapy that never went to therapy. But what can I say? They both had a damn good time falling in love with each other while hunting serial killers. And yes, check trigger warnings. Do not eat while you're reading this book or listening to it. I highly recommend the audiobook. The audiobook is fantastic. And let me know what you think, because this was again a very big surprise. I didn't realize this was going to be this good. I cannot give you comp titles. I've never listened to or read anything quite like this before. It's sort of cross between Silence of the Lambs and Sweeney Todd, if I could give you a comp. But even that is not quite true, so I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, I loved it. And that's why it's on my number 3 spot. And here's my number 2 is The Wolf and the Wildflower by Stacey Reed. Stacey Reed killed it this year. She had 2 really good, solid releases. The first one, the second one was An Earl to Remember, which was an overboard retelling. That one was just a lot of fun. But this one, The Wolf and the Wildflower, was my favorite because this one is about the Duke of Wolverton and what was her name? Jules Sotheby. So Jules was living like a man because of a lie her mother told at her birth. And the Duke of Wolverton was lost in the Canadian wilderness for like 10 years, and he is supposed to be going back to the London society that's expected of him, but he doesn't want to. He wants to live out his life in the woods. So Jules, pretending to be a man, works with her dad in the area of psychiatry and psychology, is tasked to find out why the Duke does not want to be around people. And he recognizes her as a woman right away, whereas everybody thinks she's a man. He's like, oh, you're hiding something. And she's like, oh, shit. They end up in a friendship. And then, again, this is another sort of a friends lover, because they're both secret identity, kind of. This is one of the few secret identities that really work for me because it's not malicious. This is why it worked for me, is because they were both willing to give up something. He was willing to give up his reputation to live with a man at a time when he could have been killed, because at this time, if you were even rumored to be gay, you were killed, because it was against the law to be gay. And his property would have been forfeited. And she was willing to give up her independence because at the time women had no rights to kill off Jules Sotheby and become Julia in order to become the Duchess of Wolverton, if that's what they so choose. So they both were willing to give up something major to be together, and that to me is true love. If you're willing to sacrifice something of great importance because they had to overcome something major, because that secret identity where she was supposed to be a man, that's a big thing. That was a really big thing. Anyway, and there was a lot of tender moments in this. If you notice, I'm saying a lot of very beautiful romantic moments in these books. That's why they're on my top, because I love these small little romantic moments. I felt like this was great. And it was beautiful, and it was beautifully written. And look at that man on that cover. Why do we need flowers on the cover when we can have that man on that cover? I'm just saying. Anyway, that was my number 2. Okay, my number 1 book is A Court of Mist and Fury. And the reason why A Court of Mist and Fury is my number 1 book is because it kept going and going and going. Well, originally we had the Feyre and Tamlin pairing, but then we found out exactly who Tamlin was and why he was not good. And then we found out who Feyre's mate really is. And I was like, okay. But then all this stuff was going. There were 600 pages of danger, romance, mystery. There was a lot of stuff in this book. And then the things that happened with their sisters at the end. I mean, there was so much in this book. There was characters who acted completely stupid. And I was like, oh, what am I reading? But then it's just like, again, it kept going and going and going. Like, there was Every single page of this book was well used. It was well paced. The characters, they were well plotted. They were well thought out. The characterization was there. Everything was just like nothing. For 600 pages, she used them well. The romance was believable. It was gorgeous. There was some really good stuff in here. And Rhysand. Rhysand is such a good hero. Feyre, she kind of annoyed me a little bit here and there, but I just, and this is the book when I started becoming interested in Nesta as a character. And if you know that scene that I was talking about, this was the perfect book in the entire series. But you can't read this book without reading A Court of Thorns and Roses, and you can't get to any other book in the series without reading A Court of Mist and Fury. This is the perfect book in the entire series. And I loved it. I loved every single minute of this book. But do I love Feyre more than I love Nesta? No, I think I love Nesta more because I think her character, I feel like her character is, but that's a me thing. But for if I was going to pick the best book in the series to be my best book of 2023, because I feel like this whole series as a whole is my favorite series as a whole in 2023, I have to give it to A Court of Mist and Fury because of, that cauldron scene alone. And Rhysand. Come on. So, yes. Anyway, those are my top reads of 2023. Let me know down below what was your favorite reads of 2023 were. Happy New Year. And I hope you guys have a great New Year's Eve and a great New Year's Day, and be safe out there if you're going out tonight. As always, like, comment, and subscribe if you would like to stick around. If you don't want to comment on anything, please leave me a champagne bottle emoji since it's New Year's Eve. And as always, happy reading, my friends. Bye.